Hello everyone. This story is about, what if Naruto had muted emotions and became a seal's master? Please like, share and subscribe for more. Also check the other fics I have uploaded. Now let's start. Hiruzen loved his surrogate grandson as if he were truly his own, often that the little blonde was not slipped the Hokage's mind. But there were days when he got a swift reminder that regardless of his condition, Naruto was the child of Minato and Kushina. Only their progeny could cause him such grief without trying, hell, without even being in the village. Jiraiya and Kakashi had both taken their new arrangements well, each man understanding this was the best for the members of Team 7. After a 2-week period of intensive training, the new Team Jiraiya had left the village and would be gone until a month before the Chunin exams. Knowing he'd be gone, Naruto focused his clones on projects that could have an immediate turnaround. Hiruzen was delighted at the idea of using the trees surrounding the village as their power grid. The Shinobi Corps of Engineers absolutely loved the idea and begged Hiruzen to assign Naruto to them. He, of course, declined and watched as some of the smartest ninja in his village pouted and then buried him in forms to begin retrofitting the various buildings within Konoha. The undertaking dubbed Project LEAF was underway. The SEAL team and barrier squads would be applying them to the surrounding forests for the next few weeks, but final activation would wait until Naruto came back to check the work. The extra paperwork, while he hated it, Hiruzen could ultimately deal with. It was one of the few ways his shinobi could push back against him to express their displeasure without risking any true consequence. Though the Hokage would drop their budget by 3% in the next fiscal year in retaliation. If it had stopped there, Hiruzen would count his blessings, but it had not. Naruto had even managed to anger Konohamaru's mother, Kanna, though many would know her as Anbu Saru. Kanna, too, had great affection for Naruto, but had little time to spend with him or her own son as her Anbu duties required she be gone frequently. She encouraged the bond between Kono and Naruto, as she knew it helped her son deal with her long absences. Hiruzen was aware of this, so he was initially confused when Kanna came to speak to him in his office. "Why did Naruto teach my baby the first stage of the silent killing technique?" Kanna had asked, and Hiruzen facepalmed. Kanna went at length about how Kono-chan was bragging that his Niken taught him a cool new game of tag and how he could disappear in a crowd now. Her concern wasn't so much what Naruto had started to teach Kono-chan. It was that him practicing it in the middle of the village was making people nervous, that a pint-sized assassin kept showing up behind them. Hiruzen promised he'd speak to Kono-chan while also telling Ebisu to keep a better watch of his charge. He was paying the man good money to do so. But those headaches paled in comparison to his volatile student. Tsunade had gotten back into surgery, overcoming a significant hurdle in her recovery, and was genuinely excited to practice medicine again. As she'd returned to her element, she wanted to fully immerse her newest student, but the temporary team switch complicated matters. His in-person hours at the hospital dwindled, and he'd only gotten the bare-bones basics of field surgery, managing to learn the mystic palm and chakra scalpels. As his student glared at him, her foot tapping impatiently, and sending slight tremors through his office, Hiruzen grew tired of her petulance. "If anything, Tsunade-chan, I should be mad at you," Hiruzen bit out. "What the hell did I do? I steal your student and give him to a moronic pervert?" The last Senju questioned, hands on her hips. "No, you just allowed an S-rank secret to be uncovered under your watch," the Sandame answered. "I was gone by the time Minato was an adult. Do you think I kept up with his preferred attire? Was I a member of some fan club no one told me about? Did I hang his pictures up on my wall and swoon? Also, I didn't pick Naruto's clothes, his little blonde girlfriend did that. You could have suggested a change since then." "Maybe sensei, but you have to weigh the potential harm done versus the potential harm avoided." "What are you talking about?" Hiruzen asked in confusion. "Well, sure, Naruto's secret is out or whatever. Maybe IWA tries something. But what you have now is a hospital staff that is treating him like a colleague. They even banter around the water cooler, though he mostly just listens. Because the staff treats him well, the patients are more likely to follow suit. Which means I haven't had to brutally murder anyone or get the hospital walls all messy. See? Cost and benefits, sensei. Cost. And benefits, Tsunade finished, and to Hiruzen's amazement, his lone kunoichi student really thought her argument wasn't one of a psychopath. You can't leverage the harm you would, and could wholly decide not to, do against other risks. That's madness. Madness or not, it's the truth. Now, maybe you can tell me how I am supposed to achieve these breakthroughs you expect of me if my collaborator isn't here to aid me. That is why you called me back, remember? He'll be back for the exams. And be busy taking the exams, and after he takes them then what? Jiraiya likes to go on long training trips. What am I supposed to do then? Well, about that. You know, I'm not getting any younger and I have retired once already, Hiruzen started. Tsunade became mortified and fled the Hokage's office, reasoning if she didn't hear the proposal then it didn't count. Hiruzen wasn't offended by her prompt exit, having planned for it. Sucker, he muttered through his chuckles. He knew neither of his students wanted the hat, though one would have to take it. It was time for some new blood to lead the village. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the village, Asuma was diligently training Teen 10. Well, one member of Teen 10. His lone kunoichi had just recently received her knuckle knives, but she was dedicated to learning to wield them. Asuma was not at all reluctant to admit he'd been wrong in initially denying Ino tutelage in his signature weapon. It seemed she'd matured overnight, and whereas he thought it'd be a pain to have an overeager genin constantly searching his words for deeper meaning, and offing someone's pet because of it, the Yamanaka had proven better than that. Not obsessive, just intentive. Remember, Ino, your build will never be like mine. In and out, constantly changing distance, will be your style. Set up your slashes with kicks, change levels, and have no set pattern, he instructed as she struck a training dummy. Hi, sensei, she responded before getting back to work. Asuma walked toward his other two students, the sound of thuds a soundtrack to his travel. You two need to get up and get moving, Asuma said. Ino is displaying more effort than both of you put together, and that ends now. Choji, I want you to run 10 laps around the training ground and then up and down one tree. Do that 10 times, and then come back. The chubby Akamichi grumbled but did as he was told. If Asuma could credit the air with anything, the boy knew how to follow orders. He then turned to the Nara, the one he'd assumed would be the leader of his team. His faith in that designation was starting to waver a bit. As for you, Shikamaru, we're going to work on your stamina, chakra reserves, and strategic abilities. How? Very simple, you are going to try to catch me with your shadow possession jutsu. Once you do, you must keep me restrained for 3 minutes. For however long you fall short of that goal, that time gets added to your next attempt. Troublesome, the Nara complained. Make it 3.5 minutes, Shikamaru, Asuma amended and shot his student a look daring him to complain some more. The boy, smartly, did not. He, instead, selected to follow Asuma into the clearing. Soon, Asuma called a start to their game of catch and release as the elite ninja gave the Nara a workout he wouldn't forget. In a nearby training field, another Jounin sensei overlooks her team as they train diligently. Kurenai had already run her team through the day's tracking exercises, drilled them on chakra control. Now was taijutsu sparring and then missions. The red-eyed beauty watched as her most brash student engaged her, once, most shy one. It was not going well for the Inuzuka. 2 palms, Hinata exclaimed, Byakugan active and the 2-finger jabs landing swiftly. 4 palms, she said as the strikes came faster, speed enhanced by her natural grace. 8 palms, and Kiba felt each of them. 16 palms, the Hyuga heiress yelled as she dispatched the Ninken user, his body making a disconcerting thud as he hit the ground. Yeah. I'm the princess of Juken and you better deal with it. Hinata said in triumph. In reward, today's special guest greeted her and she picked him up and cuddled him without hesitation. Did you see that Chappie-kun? Next time he won't let Akamaru-kun pick on you, will he? Kiba simply groaned while he remained on the ground. He didn't tell Akamaru to do anything to the damn rabbit, but he is a dog. A special, chakra-using, well-trained dog, but still a dog. Kiba would be unwise to dull those instincts, so Akamaru chased the damn critter around for a bit. It was all in good fun, Kiba thought. Clearly, his teammate reached a different conclusion. The pain in his body was subsiding, enough for him to gather his wits once more. He took a breath before speaking. I know you only call out the number of the strikes, to be a dick, Hinata. A smile was Hinata's only response. I think that's enough taijutsu for today, but what have we learned? I need to increase my speed and evasion techniques, Shino said. He was not the strongest in close-quarter combat, so being able to create distance was vital for him. Kurenai nodded, figuring her most analytical student would come to that conclusion. We'll work on your countering, Shino, but you're improving, so keep that in mind. What about you two? I could be more aggressive, Hinata said. Yes. It's a fine line, and as you face better opponents, they won't offer obvious gaps. Sometimes you have to create your own offense. I know with your bloodline it may not seem that way, but it's better to get in the habit. However, when you do go on the offensive, you are quite efficient. Efficient, she says. Kiba said in a raised voice. How about cruel and sadistic? Now Kiba. Sure, Hinata could have stopped her assault at 8 palms, she could have also gone to 32. You have to stop being overly aggressive. Overwhelming force is like any other technique, without control it will be easily evaded or turned on you. We'll work on helping you to set things up and get you better at fighting without Akamaru, Kurenai explained. Now, let's go do some missions, Kiba grumbled but joined the rest of his team as they departed the training grounds for a thrilling day of chores. Lastly, in another training field, Konoha's most youthful beast was joyously engaging his lone kunoichi. Something had changed with Tenten-chan, Guy noticed. It wasn't major or even concerning, but she seemed to be pushing herself a little harder, studying her fuinjutsu a little more diligently and even practicing her taijutsu in earnest. She also seemed slightly frazzled, as if some part of her worldview had been torn asunder. The Jounin considered all of this as he dodged the projectiles aimed at him. The taijutsu made it look easy, but he marveled at the improvements of Tenten's signature jutsu. And while supportive and encouraging, Guy would admit to enjoying her reaction when not a single weapon managed to even graze him. Damn it all! Tenten exclaimed, plopping down onto the grass. Yash! Do not get discouraged, Tenten-chan, your efficiency with that technique improves constantly. Guy said, giving her a thumbs up. His bright smile earning a small one from her in response. I must admit, Tenten, your technique has indeed improved. How did you manage to make the projectiles follow the target? Niji asked. I had some help with the fuinjutsu. The additional seals allow me to hone onto specific targets. That is most fascinating, indeed. Who provided this most youthful help, Tenten-chan? Lee inquired with great enthusiasm. Naruto, the weapon mistress replied. My failure of a cousin's friend? You shouldn't associate with people like him, Tenten. He'll drag you down, Niji cautioned, which annoyed his fellow teammates. You don't know what you're talking about, and since we won't agree, let's just leave it there. Niji was slightly taken aback by Tenten's response. She had never spoken to him like that, and while he respected her, he wouldn't have his beliefs questioned nor suffer disrespect from anyone. His righteous tirade killed in its conception as his other teammate, the fated failure of Team 9, butted in. Naruto-kun is most youthful, Niji. I believe you two could be friends if you could only get past your dislike. He is a bit hip and cool, but neither require an active disdain of him. He just needs to truly bear witness to the flames of youth, Yash. Well said, Lee. And since you have so much energy, time for a team spar. All of you against me. Let's get to it. Guy ordered, adopting his nice guy pose. Niji's annoyance with his teammates was quickly put on the back burner. Fighting with his sensei was never easy and required his full attention. Kabuto sat his cargo down roughly, hoping to cause every bit of discomfort he could manage. If he had his choice, he'd have drugged the boy down to his lab and begun experimentations immediately, if for no other reason than the frustration and aggravation he'd caused the longtime spy. His master's laughter only agitated him further, but he knew never to glare at Orochimaru-sama. Kukuku, no need to be so inconsiderate to our new friend, Kabuto-kun. He is my honored guest and will be treated as such, Orochimaru warned, taking great delight in Kabuto's appearance. His clothes signed, cut, and dirty. It was clear his second-in-command had experienced a tougher fight than he'd initially anticipated, and it was further proof the snake Sannin was correct in his estimation. Now, take that gag off and undo those restraints. He wouldn't be foolish enough to attack me. Right, Naruto-kun? Kabuto did as he was told, expecting the blonde to offer some manner of resistance, but was surprised when that did not happen. The genin simply rubbed his wrists to alleviate some of the soreness of having been tied up, but said nothing and made no attempt to flee. It was almost as if he didn't care who was sitting at the table across from him. The Oto medic adjusted his glasses, a tell of his current emotional state. Naruto surveyed the room. There was one visible exit to his left, and he was currently separated from the Sannin by a long dining room table. The room was well lit, lights hung above and candles decorated the stone walls. Kabuto-kun, please go retrieve dinner, Orochimaru requested. Hi, the Silverhead answered and complied. Now, we may be introduced properly. Hello, Naruto-kun. I am Orochimaru, thank you for gracing me with your presence. Naruto looked at the man, his Aji-san's traitorous student. He wasn't a guest as he was kidnapped, but it was clear the man wanted to play at this being a social call. He needed to prolong things, so the Uzumaki decided to indulge. Thank you for your invitation. You are quite welcome. Now, I am sure you are curious as to why I had Kabuto-kun and the Sound 4 provide such a forceful invite, yes? Naruto nodded. That is a bit of a story. See. When Kabuto-kun informed me that the village was undergoing some serious overhauls in security, and there was a new fuinjutsu-enabled device all the senior ninja were receiving, I was of course curious. Did Jiraiya have a late-period burst of genius, or was there a new fuinjutsu user on the scene? Orochimaru stopped as Kabuto returned. It was to my utter surprise that Kabuto-kun failed to procure one of those devices. He couldn't even break into the manufacturer's facility. With the dragnet in the village and everything else, he had to return home empty-handed. Chastened and humiliated in his defeat. It was quite shameful. Even more so that he had no idea who this potential seal master could be, Orochimaru mocked. The medic set the bowl of tonkatsu ramen in front of Naruto, trying his best not to shatter the bowl. Orochimaru merely smiled at his subordinate's anger. Naruto took up his porcelain spoon, letting a small amount of the ramen broth flow into it. Before taking the warm liquid into his mouth, the Uzumaki activated a minor medical ninjutsu. It allowed for the detection of poisons via the tongue. He detected none. With his free hand, he picked up his chopsticks and began eating in earnest. I do hope you enjoy. I recall ramen being a favorite dish of your parents, Orochimaru observed. The Uzumaki hummed. It was clear the Sannin was prodding him to see if he knew about his parents, and if the information could be a way to manipulate him. The ramen is quite good, the genin offered. Orochimaru laughed, the boy was cold as ice. Now, as I was saying, I'm now presented with this mystery, and had little to go on. So frustrating, not to know. But luckily a foolish toad brought me all I needed, Orochimaru said, incredibly pleased with himself. He took up a remote and a multi-panel screen turned on, showing various snippets of Team Jiraiya's raid on the Snake Sannin's base. Most of the footage was of Naruto. To be able to apply seals via chakra alone is a master-level ability, and here you do it with several different arrays. My poor ninja, they didn't know what to do. They were not looking for the Sannin nor his minions when they entered the base. A nearby town had been experiencing a rash of abductions, and Jiraiya was tasked with figuring it out. The infiltration had gone well, but one of the abductees triggered an alarm as they were leaving, forcing the team to fight their way out. Next, we see you erecting a barrier to trap some more of my men, leaving them to the designs of that inked beast. And lastly, we have you using that special shuriken to behead one of my prized experiments. The half-stone, berserker beast was not easily put down, beating Haku, Sai, and he. It was fast and durable. It was only some quick thinking and Naruto's emitter disc that allowed them to win, the trio hitting the floor while the monster stood upright not expecting a thing. That level of talent, with your looks. It didn't take long for Kabuto to remember a blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy named Uzumaki Naruto. Hidden away on Sasuke-kun's team. Sarutobi-sensei always was disgustingly clever like that. Put you on a team with the last Uchiha and no one would even take a second glance. I guess I'm fortunate that such things don't escape my notice. Naruto accepted that this man clearly liked to hear himself talk. It was good, he didn't have to try to banter or match wits with him. The traitor would fill the space without any prompting. That would work out well. It is little known but I originally wanted Minato to be my apprentice. If Orochimaru was expecting a reaction he didn't get one, which seemed to amuse him. I saw the same talent that Jiraiya, but I saw something even more impressive and rare. Do you know what that is, Naruto-kun? No, Naruto answered and the Sannin could not be faulted for thinking the Uzumaki was referring to him. But he wasn't. As the Sannin was speaking his team had come into range of his communicator seal. Hours earlier, Jiraiya arrived to a battlefield. His team were not at the inn he booked and the surrounding areas looked like a fierce battle had occurred. There were slashes in the trees, overturned earth, scorch marks, and the like. He approached his team, his godson administering aid to Sai and Haku. Clearly, they had been injured and that tightened the Toad Sage's chest. He'd gone to meet a contact, he really couldn't bring the kids along but during that time they'd been set upon. Naruto, what happened? Oto. One was Kabuto Yakushi, he used to work in the hospital. He was much better than a genin. The others referred to themselves as the Sound Four. They had cursed marks and overwhelmed us. Haku took an arrow to the abdomen but her flak jacket prevented it from piercing too deeply. It nearly broke a rib on impact.
So hey guys, well,
Sai had a concussion, I've treated it along with his dislocated shoulder. Is there anything else? Yes, we're both clones. Their mission was to take the original. What? Jiraiya yelled before calming down. I can just reverse summon him, so not ideal, but not a catastrophe. The boss doesn't think you should do that. And why not? They didn't want him dead, which means they are taking him back to some kind of base. The locator seal is active and the communicator seal will be once you're in range. This is a chance for more intel and to possibly confirm what you suspect, the clone argued. Jiraiya cursed himself for being so unthinking. Making their way through that other base, he said the work was likely the product of Orochimaru, more to himself and in disgust, but his team heard him. He was right, if they could get there in time, then it would be confirmation that Oto had some tie to Orochimaru and resources could be dedicated to uprooting the mysterious village. How much longer until they are operational? 20 minutes at the most. Jiraiya grunted in approval and waited for what felt like the longest 20 minutes of his life. The clones dispelled, sending back the relevant information to the original and what was left of Team Jiraiya departed swiftly. The two younger shinobi pushing themselves to keep up with the legendary ninja. The jovial Jiraiya they had grown accustomed to was gone. It was clear, when he arrived there was going to be a reckoning. As they raced toward Naruto's location, Haku was the first to realize the communicator seal had come online. She cursed herself for her weakness, in her failure to protect her friend. She'd hesitated when she had to opening to kill and it cost her. The bitter taste of regret lingered on her tongue and she promised herself she'd never allow her weak heart to endanger Naruto, or anyone else, again. Naruto-kun, are you hurt? No. We're 7 minutes out, just hold on, the last known Yuki voweled as she continued to pace, prepared to do anything to rescue her friend. 7 minutes, the Uzumaki thought. It wasn't long, but it'd have to do. He had a mission to complete and he'd listened to the weird snake man talk long enough. Forming the ram sign, a seal started to glow on Kabuto's arm, something that was not missed by Orochimaru. Nor did he miss that the seal seemed to be traveling up his subordinate's arm toward his body. Removing the hidden kunai he kept in his sleeve, Orochimaru cut Kabuto's arm off and formed an earth-style mud wall. The construct protected them from the predicted explosion. When the smoke cleared and the ringing in his ears subsided, Orochimaru realized his guest had departed. He turned to Kabuto, on the ground and writhing in pain. He could replace the boy's arm, so he hadn't lost all value. Not that he'd be that upset if Kabuto had been killed. If he could be duped by a genin, which he almost had been, then he wasn't the caliber of ninja the Sannin needed anyway. He went to the door and was shocked when he attempted to open it. He laughed at being trapped in the room, curious to see what Naruto-kun was going to do. Just after Naruto vacated the dining room, he placed a timed barrier seal on the door. It wasn't extremely complex, but it would do. He summoned his black flak jacket and zipped it up, having removed it before Kabuto finally captured him. He didn't have much time, but he'd allow his Aji-san's words to guide him. If you are ever in an enemy's territory, remove all traces of mercy and doubt. Do not expect to be shown any so show none in kind. The raid of the first Odo base had been Naruto's first kills. He wasn't sure how he felt about it. It gave him no great thrill, but didn't fill him with sadness either. He hadn't had a lot of time to figure it out, and that wasn't about to change. He activated his projection seal, having managed to tag each of the sound 4. If all went to plan, each would die tonight. The enemy will often see their numbers as a strength, but when caught off guard, when truly surprised, numbers are a weakness. People can be irrational, the larger the group, the greater the effect. Cause maximum damage, so the greatest amount of chaos while you accomplish your real mission. He could hear several people approaching him from either side of the corridor, all racing toward the dining room's entrance. Naruto removed 2 emitter discs from his flak jacket and tossed them in opposite directions. Holding the tiger seal, the discs exploded. At first he heard screams and then silence. The Uzumaki created 10 clones. They would go in the opposite direction to sow discord and secure his exit. As he ran down the hallway, he saw how effective his explosion was but resolved not to dwell on it. He needed to focus. The base was a labyrinth of long hallways and multiple underground levels. He couldn't be too rash, but he had to be swift. The first target was approaching fast, and in their haste, Naruto could hear multiple hastily planted a trap and then merged with his surroundings. "Hurry, you idiots! We need to get to Orochimaru-sama now," Sakan yelled. He and the 6 other continued down the hallway, the strongest of the sound 4 bringing up the rear. None of the ninja realized they triggered a seal, but were simply blinded and deafened by a flashbang. Naruto took advantage of his opening, descending from the stone ceiling, slapping a chakra restriction seal on Sakan and stabbing him in the brain. He knew the man was actually 2 people, but without chakra, they would share one fate. One was down. Naruto looked to the others. He performed 4 hand signs and placed his right palm on the ground. A seal emerged and surrounded the downed ninja, and Naruto departed. He still had 5 minutes left. The ninja were still disorganized, and it allowed Naruto to make it to the next level. Sticking to the ceiling, Naruto waited for his next target. It was the large one, the one that gave Sai his concussion. The Uzumaki dropped down, planning a quick slash like the one before, and felt his blade sink into flesh. "Ugh," the large man said, now a kunai stabbed into his hand. He retaliated with a fierce punch, sending Naruto through the door of an adjacent room. Jirobo grunted as he removed the blade, following the boy into the room. Only to be blown back by the explosion of an emitter disc. Pressured for time, it was underpowered, but it was enough to temporarily blind the behemoth. On pure instinct, Jirobo reached out his hands and caught the impending dual stabs aimed for his neck. Blinded and enraged, he gripped Naruto's wrists and slammed the smaller boy into the wall. Spider cracks formed due to the force. Unrelenting, the sound 4 strong man went for a headbutt, finding a pair of knees instead of his intended target, consequently breaking his nose. As Jirobo reared back, Naruto took advantage by kicking the Odo elite in the throat. Startled, he released his grip and was rewarded with a kunai in each of his lungs. The titanesque male dropped to the ground. Naruto tossed 1 more kunai to his head to make sure his target wouldn't arise again. He'd made that mistake with Kabuto, and he wouldn't make it again. Reactivating his projection seal, Naruto saw his last 2 targets were far from each other, one on the lowest level and the other near the stairwell he'd recently navigated. He had just under 3 minutes, no time to waste. Running through the halls, he was soon presented with a squad of ninja. It appeared they were getting their wits about him, his distractions wearing off. The tunic-wearing ninja seemed unsurprised to find him and ready to fight. Any half-trained shinobi force will eventually regroup and mount a counterattack. It will be harder to navigate their terrain, but nothing is hopeless. Certain people draw others to them, giving their comrades strength and confidence. Crush those individuals and you crush morale. Then neutralize all before you. Naruto took a good look at the squad before him. All adults, mostly about average size, except for one. He was closer to Hatake-sensei's height and the other 3 were surrounding him. He also saw the other 3 subtly looking at man as if waiting to follow his lead. His back was sore and his ribs ached, he was also getting impatient. He couldn't waste time with these individuals, but he knew if he got careless he'd fail and possibly die. Naruto retrieved 2 senbon from a special pouch on his jacket and took a defensive stance. The larger man laughed, as if in disbelief. Are you the one causing this ruckus? Heard you killed Sakan. Good, I always hated that bastard. Why don't you come along back to Orochimaru-sama before the boys and I hurt ya? No. A tough guy, yeah? Fine. I'll have to show you what being tough really is, and then Orochimaru-sama will reward me. The man dashed toward Naruto after that. His speed was moderate and his stance was all wrong for fighting a much smaller opponent. Once he reached Naruto he found the 2 senbon in a knee each. Stunned from the pain, he didn't block the dropkick delivered by the kidnapped genin. The other 3 showed the depths of their disbelief that this child had managed. It was a mistake. Their other mistake was going toward their downed leader instead of attacking Naruto, but they wouldn't get the chance to amend it. One flare of chakra later and the 2 senbon exploded, taking out the entire squad. Ignoring the gore and smell of burnt flesh, Naruto charged through the door. Pain soon followed. Immense pain and the feeling of being forcefully lifted from his feet and, again, tossed through a door. From his back, the Uzumaki looked down to see a golden arrow penetrating his protective wear. He could feel the cracks in his ribs as breathing became more difficult. He could also feel the injury slowly healing, but he had no time to wait for completion. Naruto ran through the doorway again, this time leaping over the railing, down to the next floor, narrowly avoiding being impaled by another arrow. As he grabbed onto the metal frame, he grunted in discomfort. This is as far as you go, Blondie. Kidomaru said, hanging from a web, aiming his bow for Naruto. Not having a moment to breathe, Kidomaru continued his game of cat and mouse, rapidly shooting arrows at Naruto's position and the Uzumaki barely dodging them. This man was a target, but he had the high ground and other advantages. No matter how he moved, the Spider Boy was simply prepared to attack and leave no time for a counter. Naruto accepted he didn't have the time to see to him personally, the only benefit of being under constant assault is that he was nearing the bottom level. Letting go of his current position, Naruto retrieved 3 pellets and threw them upward. Soon, the stairwell was engulfed in smoke and Kidomaru pulled himself up so as to not be ambushed. The 6-armed ninja's instinct was correct as a series of wind-style, air bullets rocketed upward. He evaded them, but frowned as the smoke was still rising and his vision was blocked. The sound 4 Archer heard more than saw items cutting through the smoke. He had just enough time to escape the immediate blast radius, but still suffered some damage. When the smoke finally cleared, Kidomaru saw roughly a dozen copies of the little bastard he'd abducted earlier. He was already tired from the previous fight but realized this kid was intent on trying to kill him. He released the first level of his cursed mark and got ready for round 2. The original landed silently and made his way toward his final target. He was nearing the end of his time limit, having to forego stealth for speed. Naruto darted past the prison cells, the detainees too beaten and terrorized to give away his position. Most didn't even bother to look up. He stalked the last of Orochimaru's bodyguard and would not have needed his seal to find her. The kunoichi was busy berating some of prisoners, using a host of foul language and insults. Naruto took a calming breath, recalling another piece of advice from Izagi-san. Never be afraid to go at someone's strength. Shinobi can be prideful about our skills. If you go at a specialist with a weak iteration of their skill, they may be too busy boasting to realize the opening they left you. Take full advantage of it. Naruto recalled the girl used auditory genjutsu but wasn't much for direct combat. He didn't know many proper genjutsu, but he did have one that would fit the situation. A quick series of hand seals, and Naruto cast the demonic art, Hell Viewing Jutsu. Tayuya knew immediately she was under a genjutsu and tore through it with little effort. As she turned to berate the idiot that would dare attempt such a useless technique on her, a shin met the soft cartilage of her nose, breaking it easily. As Naruto approached the downed kunoichi, he heard a vehement shake of cell doors. Sensing it was a warning, Naruto ducked to all fours, the kick aimed for his head sailing over him. But he didn't have enough time to avoid the follow-up kick to his injured ribs. The blow, strong and fast, sent the Uzumaki back several feet. "So, this is the trash that interests Orochimaru-sama?" Naruto heard a voice ask. He looked up and saw it was an older, white-haired teen with loose-fitting clothes. The kick hurt, undoing any progress his regenerative abilities had accomplished. "Yeah," Tayuya started, pinching her nose, "that's the fucker." "Good, you leave and I'll handle it from here," Kimimaro ordered. The normally vulgar girl did as she was told and departed further away. The Uzumaki tossed a kunai toward the girl, but Kimimaro caught it and tossed it to the side. Naruto felt frustration rise within him. He barely had a minute and a half left and he had to get through this person to finish his mission. Kimimaro attacked without warning. With his injuries, Naruto was forced to be more defensive and evasive in this fight, utilizing the moves Shizune taught him. He was dodging most of the older boy's blows, but still getting clipped occasionally. The pair looked caught in a dance of death, the flourishes of agility eschewing the deadly intent. Naruto could admit the person he was fighting was better than him, but he wasn't deterred. He remained patient, learning his enemy's pattern and timing. It wasn't long before he found his opening. Kimimaro attempted a roundhouse and Naruto slipped under it, slyly placing a paper bomb on Kimimaro's leg. Naruto shunshined away and activated the note. He heard a grunt of pain but saw none of the blood he'd assumed would accompany his move. When the smoke cleared, he saw the Oto ninja looking mostly unharmed, save for his burned clothing. His leg, encased in a thick armor of what appeared to be bone and holding a sword of the same material. "It seems it was wrong of me to call you trash. I am Kagaya Kimimaro and will present your broken body to my lord." Naruto said nothing in response, but unsealed his staff. Giving it a twirl, he charged toward the now-named Kagaya. Back in the stairwell, Kidomaru was breathing heavily. The clones pushed him to the point of needing the second level of his cursed mark. The surroundings were wrecked, signs of multiple explosions and blunt force damage could be seen about. He was just glad he finally got all of them. He needed to get his burns looked at and get some rest, putting an end to this. Lulled into a false sense of security, he reacted too slowly when a final clone descended from above. Trying to make up for being caught unaware, he created a short arrow, palming it, the archer thrust it behind him. He got the clone, but not before it had completed its mission. Kidomaru instantly felt the backlash of the seal that had been placed on him. A seal that would bind his cursed mark and force it to recede. The pain and the destabilization of his chakra network caused the arachnid-themed boy to lose his grip. Falling, he could do nothing to save himself as unconsciousness was setting upon him. Not able to channel chakra into his body, Kidomaru hit the ground from a several stories fall, breaking his back, but not even the force of his impact nor the agony it elicited could wake the boy. Kimimaro looked at the boy he'd been exchanging blows with. He'd been tempted to activate his cursed mark but knew it'd hasten his decline. He felt he couldn't give this boy a single opening or the blonde would put full effort into ending him. He could only die when Orochimaru-sama gave him permission. Kimimaro wondered how the boy would fight unhampered, clearly holding back as to not harm the prisoners and due to injuries sustained in previous exchanges. But that could wait. The boy had an unknown opening and the Kagaya planned to take advantage of it to end this fight. He really could not prolong it without deleterious effects. He charged, performing several fast-paced thrusts at the Konoha Genin. Naruto deflected the attacks one after another, as Kimimaro predicted he would, but after his first volley the boy lowered his staff. Channeling chakra into his legs, the leader of Orochimaru's elite guard rushed him, stabbing Naruto in the left shoulder. It was as he designed it. However, Kimimaro could take no pleasure in his assumed victory. During his dash, Naruto was engaging a plan of his own. Having created a false opening for the Kagaya, Naruto resealed his staff and took the blow to his shoulder. He only needed one hand anyway. Grinding. Flesh grinding. his very muscles being pulverized and begging to give way to a superior force. There are very few people who have experienced the Rasengan and lived. Kimimaro would be added to that list, ironically having Jiraiya to thank for saving his life just as Naruto was about to pierce his torso with the peak of shape manipulation. The Toad Sage reversed summoned him. With little ceremony, the Uzumaki ripped out the bone sword from his shoulder. He found himself inside a hug, feeling the familiar softness of Haku's bust. Normally, he greatly appreciated Haku's hugs, but now he felt as if he didn't deserve it. He'd failed. He was to neutralize those that had harmed his friends, and he'd failed. Before he could give voice to any of his thoughts, he heard a voice he thought he'd be free of for some time. He knew his barrier wouldn't last long, but hoped the weird, snake man would attend to his forces. Jiraiya stood in front of his team, ready to strike should Orochimaru make an untoward move. Kukuku, why Naruto-kun, you sure caused a mess. You've gone too far this time, Orochimaru, Jiraiya yelled, but the snake Sannin's eyes didn't leave Naruto. We can fight now, Jiraiya, but I have the superior numbers, and no problem killing the kitties. I'd love to get that Yuki on my table. We'd have a lot of fun. I'd have a lot of fun. You'd scream yourself hoarse and beg me to stop. Jiraiya frowned. It really wouldn't be safe for him to go all out with his team here, and going all out was the only way he'd kill his former teammate. They'd have to retreat for now, even though everything inside of him wanted to kill that man and all who dared to follow him. Let's go, Jiraiya ordered. Oh, before you do, I never got to give you my answer, Naruto-kun. The reason I wanted Minato-kun as a student? He was a natural-born killer. Just like me, Orochimaru said and broke out into a face-splitting smile. And just like you. Orochimaru gazed upon his downed elites. 2 of his sound 4 were confirmed dead. Kadamaru managed to hang on, but the long-range fighter sustained a broken back and legs. Worse yet, in his few conscious moments, when prompted, he could not activate his cursed mark. The spider-esque shinobi confessed he couldn't even feel it to draw upon. Kimimaro was in critical but stable condition. Orochimaru didn't know whether to count the Kaguya as lucky or not. Sure, he lived, but the damage done by what, as he described it, could only be the Rasengan shortened his already dwindling life, and he'd be in great pain for the remainder. Kabuto, by comparison, was better off. The arm he lost could be replaced and would in short order. That the medical ninja was clearly suppressing rage at having been maimed, and more importantly, nearly killed by a child amused the snake Sannin. He was aware that Kabuto would try to kill the Uzumaki at his earliest opportunity. If he managed it, the Akatsuki would bring down the full force of their wrath. Orochimaru was a genius, but he knew he couldn't defeat the entirety of the Akatsuki. Still, he held no concerns for Kabuto's attempt. If his assumptions about Naruto were correct, the Uzumaki had seen enough of Kabuto's fighting style and techniques to get an accurate measure of him. Kabuto didn't currently have anything in his arsenal that would alter that conclusion. In short, Kabuto had likely been figured out by the boy. He may be faster and more experienced, but it wouldn't matter. If Kabuto tried to strike at Naruto, he'd lose his life in the process, and if his second wasn't perceptive enough to realize that, then he'd come to the end of his usefulness anyway. All in all, the murdering and crippling of his elites, the loss of dozens more and having to abandon a base, were small sacrifices. If Naruto had even half of his father's potential, and his facility with seals would put the estimation well above that, he'd be a once-in-a-generation talent. What did displease him was what the surveillance footage showed. The chibi assassin hadn't shown one sign he was enjoying himself. It was all business. While admirable to a degree, it simply wouldn't do for his student. He would teach the Uzumaki how to have fun while he worked, to extract every ounce of pleasure from his deeds. Life was too short to not love what you did. But Naruto would learn. You seem happy, Orochimaru-sama, Giran said, having just entered the medical wing. More excited than anything, Giran-chan. I believe I have stumbled upon something interesting. The boy? Yes, indeed. Naruto-kun seems to have the talent and inclinations of his father, along with something else truly magnificent. What is that? A bloodline? Will he be your next host? She asked, managing to repress much of the bitterness in her voice, but Orochimaru heard it all the same. No, nothing like that, and he couldn't be my new host even if I wanted him to. First, he knows how to completely seal up the cursed mark, so I'd be wasting my time even trying. Secondly, I suspect he is the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Girin's eyes went wide for the briefest of moments before she regained her composure. Is that how he was able to defeat them? She asked. Kukuku, no. I don't know if he can use the Kyuubi's chakra, but it was clear he didn't need to. There is a lot of potential in him. The very prospect makes me giddy. How shall I be of use? I want you to backchannel with our remaining assets in Konoha. Get all the information you can on Naruto-kun. Jiraiya knows of my connection with Oto, so some things will need to change, but the invasion will still commence. Hi, Girin said as she bowed and departed. The pieces on the board hadn't changed, but the game had. The Snake Sannin just had to get them all lined up before the game was afoot. Finally, things were getting interesting. A purple-haired, long-term ANBU kneeled in front of her Hokage. The wizened leader was making quick work of her report. When Jiraiya submitted the details of Naruto's kidnapping, Hiruzen wasted no time ordering a full platoon of ANBU to the location. He knew his wayward student would have likely departed, but if there was even the slim possibility, he would be there. He wanted his best on the scene. By the time the elite operatives arrived, the base had been cleared. The forensic specialists, of which Kat was one, swept through the place anyway, paying special focus to any of Naruto's leftover fuinjutsu. The boy had been detailed about his various seals and traps, which was fortunate as he saved the ANBU from tripping any. The damage inflicted should not have been possible by a rookie genin, and it reflected in her report's conclusion. The Sandaime read speedily, pride and worry warring within him. Kat's description of Naruto's impromptu mission adding color to Naruto-kun's dry synopsis. As described by Genin Uzumaki, ANBU squad found several examples of his motion-activated explosions. Trapping shows, while Genin Uzumaki may not fully understand the subjective elements of emotions, he understands as sensory inputs that elicit predictable reactions. Seals placed on incapacitated Oto-nin were linked. If someone went to aid a downed comrade, the seal would trigger multiple simultaneous explosions. Genin Uzumaki also showed great practicality in his seal design and placement. Some traps created to take advantage of basic shinobi formations. Pressure seals triggered by a lead ninja would take out members behind, without the lead knowing, leaving the lone shinobi confident in numbers that were no longer present. It is my conclusion that Genin Uzumaki, by attempting to carry out a 5-target assassination mission behind enemy lines, with 2 confirmed kills and 2 possible to likely, as well as providing information on Nukenin Orochimaru, should be promoted to Chunin and drafted into the ANBU Black Ops. No, the Sandaime said. There is safety in anonymity. You utilized this logic for most of his life, Hokage-sama, Kat responded, neutrally, but Hiruzen felt the acidity of her words. An anonymous orphan and an ANBU are hardly the same. Rise, Kat, her leader ordered, and she obeyed. ANBU would not aid in his development. ANBU would make him strong, just like it did for Kakashi. Like me. Even Itachi. We don't need another Itachi, the Hokage observed. Naruto-kun wouldn't be like Itachi, their psychology is fundamentally different, and Naruto-kun would never turn on Konoha unless you ordered him to, Kat countered. Hiruzen felt pained at how close to the truth Kat unknowingly was about Itachi. Naruto-kun will never be an ANBU as long as I draw breath. Then send him to cryptanalysis or the engineering divisions. Create a real fuinjutsu division, place the barrier core under it, and promote him to special jounin, Kat argued. She was growing frustrated. The Sandaime was one of, if not the smartest man in the village. Clearly he could see Naruto was attracting attention that outstripped his development. It would only get worse, and the blonde wasn't prepared. I know you worry about him and you honor Kushina, but Naruto-kun must be allowed to grow. I believe he is something special and will do great things. Just like Minato left his mark on a student, Kushina had as well. Mostly informal, her pregnancy delaying things, but Kushina had mentored the young ANBU Kunoichi, and Kat admired the woman. But like Kakashi, she simply wasn't a viable option for adoption, as her work with the Black Ops organization was too vital. He has to be alive to achieve those goals, Kat stated. Yes, he must. But he must also be tested. Fate and foolish old men have not been kind to Naruto-kun. And as much as it pains me to say it, Orochimaru will simply be one of many challenges he will endure in the future. He has no choice but to be strong. Better than even his father, and at a much earlier age. He will be at his best in the light, reaching only a fraction of his true potential as an ANBU. That's not a reasonable expectation, Hokage-sama. Minato-sama was considered more than a genius. I know. Many saw him as the perfect shinobi, but he wasn't. He was just a man. Indescribably talented, but not perfect. He can be surpassed, and I believe he thought Naruto-kun would be the one to do so. Sandaime-sama, that is even more reason to draft him. He'll get dedicated training and experience. Kakashi, Jiraiya, and Tsunade do what they can, but all have to split focus to other duties or charges. My decision on this is final, cat. Naruto-kun was meant for the light, not the darkness, and if you've spoken to Tenzo, then you know he is building bonds with many. He's not that lonely, little boy you used to watch play in the forest. Besides, Naruto-kun doesn't need cat, but I bet Yugao would be a fine addition in his life. But? Did you really think I allowed Kakashi-kun to be his sensei, bring Jiraiya back, but deny you? I honestly assumed I wouldn't have to tell you. He knows about his parents, so you can introduce yourself. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Haku, secure the perimeter, Jiraiya ordered. The small house they were set to enter was unassuming, but he wouldn't allow himself to be overly lax again. The two departed without a word. He saw his other student making the cross-shaped hand sign, and Jiraiya swatted his hands apart. What do you think you're doing, Naruto? Creating clones, to add security seals to the house, he answered. Team Medic doesn't do that. Team Medic treats injuries. And what are you? Experiencing a great deal of irritation caused by you, Naruto replied, neutrally. The Team Medic, yes you are, Jiraiya spoke, answering his own question and ignoring his godson. He knew he was being hard on the boy, but what Naruto did was stupid. Jiraiya didn't care if it worked out. It was an unnecessary risk. That he had to admonish Naruto for doing something stupid in a similar way to how he once admonished Minato didn't help things. He'd lost him way too soon, and he would not lose Naruto. But the Uzumaki was hard-headed, insistent he took the correct course of action. Jiraiya needed him to understand it wasn't okay to deceive his team leader, even for a just cause. And revenge, which is what Jiraiya would chalk this up to, would never be just. The Sannin knocked on the door and immediately heard scurrying about. What's the password? He heard a Kunoichi timidly ask. Jiraiya rolled his eyes as there were a lot of passwords, and how you knew which one to give was set up by the first person speaking. They start the phrase, you end it. The password is I'm Jiraiya of the Sannin, now open the door, Missy. And no. Jiraiya facebombed. He could hear how rattled the girl was just by her voice. Still, had she not been trained on how to verify support? He wondered what Kakashi was teaching his team. Sakura-san, I offered to have sex with you once we reached 16. You did not seem receptive to the offer. The door opened and Naruto was ensconced in a hug. Without any diagnostic jutsu, he could tell his teammate was nearing exhaustion and needed rest. Whatever she could relay wouldn't be credible, so Naruto raised a green glowing hand to her temple. She instantly went slack in his arms, and he executed a bridal carry as they entered the cabin like home. As they entered, they saw Kakashi on the couch palming a kunai, but looking otherwise unbothered. Oh, Naruto-kun, you sly devil. Naruto looked at his sensei and then at his godfather, not understanding the implication. Kakashi, I smiled, figuring Naruto wouldn't get it. Spare room is in the back, lay her down and then check on Sasuke and Lee, okay? Naruto nodded and walked off. As relieved as I am to see you, Jiraiya-sama, you seem stressed. Jiraiya scoffed. I'm beyond stressed, Kakashi. I am in a storm of shit of which there is no safe passage nor dry land. We raided one of Orochimaru's bases, it was our first mission. The snake responds by having his elite bodyguards attack my team and snatch Naruto while I was with a contact. Jiraiya rubbed at his temple, trying to will away his headache. Had he paid attention, he'd have noticed Kakashi visibly tense, only having seen his student reassured him the boy was okay. And if that wasn't bad enough, Kushina's brat decides that each of the ninja involved in his abduction had to die. Not for kidnapping him, he, by all appearances, doesn't even give a shit. No, it's because they hurt Sai and Haku in the attempt. So, what does he do? He goes to fucking war by himself in a base where Orochimaru was in attendance. And he almost pulled it off. He even managed to beat a Kagaya. By the time I got there, it looked like a team of demolition experts had gone crazy. Sensei and Haim know he was snatched, no Orochimaru has interest in him. Sensei sent Enma to inform me of his displeasure. Katsuya tells me Tsunade is creating a new technique just for me. Hell, I can't even reprimand the kid too harshly without Haku wanting to use my nutsack for target practice. She's been his shadow since we got him back. This has just been a mess, Jiraiya finished and finally looked at Kakashi. He didn't not like what he was seeing. I know you were long-time ANBU and you masks get all turned around but do not, under any circumstances, praise him for what he did, Kakashi. I don't want to encourage this kind of behavior, not misleading me nor in revenge-seeking. Kakashi didn't bother to fight the pride he was feeling and resolved to get the full report once he returned to the village. I won't admonish him either, not without all the information. Sure, whatever, the Sannin replied. Now, what happened to you? Oh, you know? Came to escort the client to the capital, to get her away from local crime lord. Residents poisoned me, and attempted to do the same to the genin out of fear of what would happen if crime lord doesn't get what he wants. Crime lord's muscle, made of multiple missing or former ninja attack and with me poisoned, we sustained more damage than we would otherwise while losing the client. Okay, give me everything you know, and I'll complete the mission. With the rest of your team? No. My bastard of a former teammate pissed me off and I need to cut loose. Can't do that with the kids around. Besides, Haku and Sai will be more than enough to guard this place. Naruto is remanded to non-combat duties unless absolutely necessary. You sure you want to provoke him like this? As you say, he is Kushina's child and you remember she always got even. Always, the copy ninja stressed. Pfft, I'm a Sannin, what can that brat do to me? He bought your publisher, remember? Well, he can't buy them a second time. I'll be fine. Kakashi didn't bother to respond further, as he reasoned Jiraiya would simply have to learn the hard way. Naruto-kun? Lee asked in surprise as his newest friend walked into the bedroom. Both he and Sasuke were on bedrolls. Is Sakura-chan alright? The taijutsu specialist asked in concern. Sasuke remained quiet, only watching his occasional teammate lie Sakura down on her own bedroll. She is fine, Lee-san, Naruto said once he'd gotten Sakura down, she just needed some rest. She'll wake up in a few hours. Naruto created a shadow clone and sent it to Lee as he moved to and kneeled next to Sasuke. The original and the clone began their diagnostic jutsu and Naruto noticed the gash on Sasuke's side. It was deep, but bandaged well so as long as Sasuke didn't make any sudden moves, he'd have been fine. He also noticed high levels of dopamine and norepinephrine. There were signs of fatigue and high blood pressure as well. Sasuke-san, can you tell me what happened? We got ambushed. Handled the initial wave, but there were a few missing nin that overwhelmed us. I activated my Sharingan in time to save Sakura from getting killed. Though, who knows what state we'd be in if our team medic was with us from the start, Sasuke said bitterly. He wasn't really mad at Naruto, or Sakura for that matter. It did scare him how close he came to dying, to never fulfilling his life's ambition. Reasonable, Naruto replied, taking no offense. He continued his checkup, now focusing on Sasuke's newly evolved eyes. Your Sharingan, what do you experience when you activate it? How did you activate it? I don't know, we were getting overwhelmed and they just activated. Suddenly, everything seemed slower and I could react better to it. It's why I was able to get to Sakura. Takasaikia, trauma-induced, Naruto thought and would make note of it in his medical report. Sasuke-san, I would recommend you not activating your Sharingan again before undergoing a full workup once you've returned to the village. The Uchiha wasn't happy about that but didn't protest. Still tired and sore from the attack. The clone was attending to Lee and noticing a high degree of muscle strain and tears. The youthful beast explained the 8 inner gates while he regaled him of his fierce battle. It was very vivid and the clone nodded in appreciation of Lee's storytelling ability. The clone repaired the most serious of the damage, making sure Lee could be operational should the need arise, but letting the body finish healing naturally was generally preferable. He'd only need a day or two of rest and he'd be fine. Naruto returned to the front room to render treatment to Kakashi. The boy worked in silence, only humming when he discovered an anomaly. Nothing life-threatening, but something he'd request a more experienced medic look over in his report. Kakashi watched Chibi, debating whether he should ignore Jiraiya's request and praise his favorite student for doing something cool. He doubted Sasuke nor Sakura would do anything half as cool until they were Chunin. So, Jiraiya-sama tells me you found yourself in a bit of trouble, Kakashi observed, dryly. Yes, Naruto responded as he was writing his report. And how do you feel about everything? Displeased. I failed to neutralize all of my desired targets. Understandable, but not every mission can be a success. How about your team? How are Sai and Haku? Sai has voiced his displeasure at his performance as well. Haku. I do not know. She has, unless ordered otherwise, remained very close to me since my return. That's not all bad, is it? No, I am amenable to it, but am unsure of the motivation. She says she is fine, but I do not believe that to be the case, however I am unsure how to proceed. Kakashi thought about the Hayaton user and what he knew of her, not taking long for his vast intellect to reach a conclusion. You know, she defined herself by her ability to protect and be of value to Zabuza. For a long time that's how she understood the world. I doubt she's changed that radically in such a short time. Maybe she believed she should have been better able to protect you and feels bad she could not. We are a team and she is my friend, not a guard, Naruto responds. Yes, but the same could be said for you. Once you confirmed Orochimaru was behind the abduction, you could have allowed Jiraiya-sama to reverse summon you. You have to allow that your friends will be as protective of you as you are of them. I accept the premise, but I am perfectly fine and yet she is not. Then maybe she needs some reassurance, Kakashi suggested. Naruto looked at his sensei to see if there would be more, and when there was not, he nodded and began to write his reports. Knowing a secondary conversation wouldn't impede his report writing, Kakashi continued, so, about Orochimaru, how do you feel about all of that? I am unsure. As he is a known traitor and enemy to Aji-san and the Leaf, I am tempted to simply dismiss his words about the Yondaime as empty. What did he say about Minato-sensei? He said he was a natural killer and his interest in me was that we shared that trait. Is it true? Naruto asked and Kakashi experienced a wave of revulsion. No. Orochimaru is mad and his madness colors his perspective. Minato-sensei simply could endure the realities of shinobi life better than anyone I've known. He knew how to make and accept the hard decisions, but when the mission was over he knew how to enjoy life. If I see any comparison between you two, it is that. Sensei was a skilled killer, but he didn't enjoy it. He also wasn't racked with guilt. Orochimaru is a psychopath, and no matter what he says, I know you aren't that, Kakashi explained to his student. Naruto nodded as he finished his report, submitting it to Tsunade via the shared storage seal. He was going to start on a seal project, but Sai came through the door, ever-present smile on his face. We subdued 3 enemy ninja, Sai stated. Excellent work. I'll meet up with Haku, you stay here with Naruto-kun, he instructed the smiling boy. Sai nodded and Kakashi started toward Haku, easily reversing Sai's route through scent. Is Haku okay? She's a sadist, Sai offered his psychological diagnosis. Physically? Yes, ignoring the sadism she is well. Tsunade sat in the cafeteria with her longtime student, enjoying her soup and sandwich. She could have eaten in her office, but she made it a point to be in common areas. No, she wasn't the warmest nor friendliest person in the world, but her staff couldn't find her unapproachable either. Eating amongst them was just one way she attempted to show that. Her hazel orbs were looking over Naruto's just submitted report and she was intrigued. If he were correct, it pointed towards some interesting treatment options, but she wouldn't know until Team 7 returned. As she was handing the report to Shizune, intending to request her opinion, the Sannin was joined by a purple-haired kunoichi. Tsunade considered the woman standing in front of her. It wasn't hard to deduce who she was given the hair, the last Senju having seen the ANBU around from time to time. Some might wonder how ANBU were allowed such distinctive characteristics, but if you were an enemy and you saw ANBU, you were about to die anyway. Forgive me for interrupting, Tsunade-sama, but may I have a moment of your time? The fellow Leaf Ninja asked. Sure. Yugao, ma'am. Yuzuki Yugao. Yugao, of course, have a seat, Tsunade invited and the swordswoman accepted. What can I do for you? I was hoping you could tell me a little about Uzumaki Naruto-kun. I was on his detail when he was small, but reassigned once he joined the academy and haven't been able to keep tabs on him since. Yugao explained, but Tsunade was incredulous. So curious, just because you watched him several years ago? If I'm going to discuss my student with a relative stranger, I need a little more than that. Besides, you wouldn't want me to misread your motives. Yugao received the threat, as it was intended, but showed no outward signs. She was intimidated. I was mentored by his mother for a short time before she became pregnant, she shared. I would have liked to have been more involved, but it was thought to be safer if I was not. Sandame-sama just gave me permission to meet with him socially, and I thought I could share some things with him about his mom that others wouldn't know. Okay. Well, Shizun spends as much time with him as I do, so what would you say about your kohai? Tsunade asked, teasingly. Her student had taken to Naruto quite fast, liking someone paying such close attention to her. Tsunade knew her longtime student well enough to know she had to fight the urge to treat the boy like a life-sized plushie every time he cocked his head to the side and squinted when in deep thought. Shizun wasn't affected by her master's taunts, having grown used to them over the years. She, instead, simply answered Yugao, Naruto-kun approaches the world as if it is a series of puzzles. Some he solves quickly, others more slowly, but I doubt he ever gives up. This is why he'll make a good diagnostician. The problem is, he's so used to trying to figure things out that he often misses when he should simply experience something. He idolizes the Sandame, adores Konohamaru-kun, and cherishes his best friend, Hinata-chan, though he likely doesn't understand that's how he feels about these individuals. He can be very kind, in his way, never intending to be rude or mean. But given recent events, he can also be very unkind if the situation calls for it. Yugao could only grimly nod at the final part of Shizun's statement. She saw the aftermath of his unkindness. Brat also likes the ladies. Yes, I've heard whispers about his fondness for the fairer sex. I worry about Kakashi and Jiraiya-sama's influence. Oh, yeah, that'll be something to stamp out, but I mean he genuinely likes women. I don't think it's an accident, most of his friends are girls. Yugao nodded at Tsunade's correction. Is there anything else I should know? Both medics answered in the negative and Yugao departed. She had a few more stops to make before her information gathering was completed. Kakashi arrived to the scene of the battle, if it could be called that. The three ninja that harmed his cute, little students were riddled with sunban and unconscious. He found that surprising, because from what Naruto told to him, this Haku was a precision fighter. However, it appeared she went to town on the three-felled ninja before him. Paired with the vision of overwhelming violence, Haku stood before the copy ninja looking quite innocent. It was slightly unnerving. Haku-chan, report, Kakashi casually ordered. I saw the three making their way to the cabin and intercepted them. They tried to resist and greater force was called for, she answered. And you are sure all this was necessary? Kakashi asked, skeptical of her conclusion. Very, Hataki-san. Well, good. Why don't you head back to the cabin and I'll educate these young men on the error of their wicked ways. They are unconscious, Hataki-san, Haku observed. Then it will be a short lesson, won't it? Kakashi posed the rhetorical question while favoring Haku with a nice smile. She simply departed by a shunshin and allowed the odd man to do what he was. Kakashi returned to his observance of the trio of fair-skinned and platinum blonde missing ninja. He knew them, the three were infamous. Called the Lightning Brothers, the triplets had the distinct dishonor of becoming missing ninja because they were too stupid to find their way back to Kumo after a mission. I simply wanted to be rid of them, hence the burn notice. Now, what to do with you poor devils? You aren't really worth enough to bother with a bounty. Can't possibly know enough to use for information. Anything you did know, Jiraiya is currently making it moot anyway. And, you hurt my team. Decisions. Decisions. As Haku arrived to the cabin, she heard the faint sounds of many birds chirping. Yugao walked into the dimly lit bar. It was the perfect spot for day drinking, dark, moderately spacious, and with a workforce and clientele that knew how to keep secrets. She just hoped her target was sober enough to be of use, or even mildly coherent. He was not a hard man to spot, even in a place as sparsely lit as her current location. He simply used a regal aura, fitting for the head of the Hyuga clan. What was unexpected was his company, several of the other clan heads. Yugao approached the shared booth and gave a slight bow when the clan leaders turned to her. Forgive my intrusion, but may I have a brief word with you, Hayashi-sama? Yugao-san, Hayashi greeted, unless it is Hyuga business, I am sure whatever you wish to discuss with me can happen right here. Hayashi offered. In truth he was drunk and had no desire to leave his seat. If you're sure, Yuga responded, and the man nodded while Choza offered her a seat. I wish to ask you about your impression of Uzumaki Naruto-kun. I know Hinata and he are friends, and I was just wanted your opinion of him. What makes you so interested in the pup? Sum asked in curiosity. Hayashi chuckled and said, careful, Sum. If Yuga-san answered that she'd have to kill the majority of us at this table, and I like my head where it is. It makes me look regal. You get self-complimentary when you drink, Hayashi. It's too troublesome, Shikaku observed. Hayashi-san seems to know more than he should, Yuga stated. The directive given to the ANBU and Jiraiya was not widely spread to other shinobi, clan head or otherwise. How he knew of the Sandame's orders to silence anyone that questioned, investigated or implied anything remotely true about Naruto's heritage was to be removed with extreme prejudice. Some might say it is cruel to have such an order given to the most elite assassins of the village without informing anyone else, but the Sandame reasoned if he didn't tell anyone not to look into Naruto's ancestry they wouldn't question why they shouldn't. I wish I could claim some stellar ninja tradecraft, but the Sandame informed himself a few years ago. Now, about Naruto-san, Hayashi started but was cut off. He's an incorrigible pervert with designs on my baby girl, Inoichi complained. And he even managed to win my wife over. I don't get how Hayashi allows him around Hinata so much. We should team up, Hayashi. Team up and save our little girls, Inoichi pleaded as he slammed his drink down. The overprotective father thing would work better if your and my child weren't juvenile soldiers, Inoichi. Have some self-respect, Hayashi chastised. Yes, there is a whole lot I can't protect my Ino-chan from but boys? I can do that. And look, I wrote up the psychological profile on Naruto, and it made me disgusted with this village for a very long time. He doesn't get my daughter's virginity because of it. Shut the hell up, Inoichi. Sum barked. You can't decide who your kid sleeps with, when she chooses to, any more than you could decide her hair color. And if the genders were reversed, you wouldn't even care. I am comfortable in my hypocrisy, Inoichi said. Typical male, the Inuzuka replied. Troublesome. Hayashi, you haven't answered Yuga-san's question. Right, sorry, the Hyuga apologized. Yuga waved him off. Uzumaki Naruto, our greatest dishonor as a village and mine as a father. I owe the young man. He managed to get through to Hinata-chan when none of my methods worked. You mean being a hard ass and then a harder ass? Sum asked. Yes. She's developed incredibly well since they became friends, and I worry about her less because of it. Am I thrilled that she has designs on a boy with a wandering eye? No, but I know better than to stand between a Hyuga woman and her desire. As for the boy himself, he is honest and polite, though never deferential. I trust if Hinata ever needed him for something he'd deliver it. That must make you anxious, given the old, Shikaku pointed to his forehead. And it did give Hayashi pause. He didn't know how good the Uzumaki was at seals as far as official ranking, but he knew the boy was incredibly skilled. The sole condition he put on Hinata's friendship with Naruto was that she did not try to get him to remove the caged bird seal. He remembered the visible pain in her eyes when she agreed to forego one of her sincerest desires. A little, Hayashi said. Kiba said the pup was kinda weird, like emotionless or something. He has emotions, Inoichi corrected. I'm too drunk to go into it, but he has them. And we're lucky muted effect is all he has. Inoichi took 2 quick shots before continuing. Damn kid deserved better. Cursed to have a father that loved the village more than him. Because he believed in the village that would let a no-name orphan be its leader. The will of fire. We pissed on it. Hold up, are you saying Sum started, but Hayashi interrupted her before the only sober ninja among them, an ANBU no less, silenced her. He isn't saying anything, Sum. Right, Inoichi? Pfft, whatever. If we'd done right things would be different. If either of them were here, could come back and see what we caused. You couldn't dig the graves fast enough. A collective shudder was had by the table as they imagined chakra chains and teleporting ninja. Getting what she came for, even if it wasn't much, Yugo excused herself and left, resolving to never do that again. Haku looked at the flowers being presented to her, the assortment of red, yellow and orange meshed with the dusk setting. She also noticed the bouquet wrapped in sealing paper, her rudimentary knowledge telling her the seals had something to do with water. She concluded Naruto created some kind of hydrating seal, removing the need for a water-filled vase. As she reached for the flowers, her eyes moved away from the impromptu gift to the blue eyes of the gift giver. Some would call them blank, but she knew better. Free from judgment, yes, but never empty of meaning. Thank you, Naruto-kun. What have I done to receive such a lovely gift? Naruto squinted and leaned his head to the side. Haku assumed it was an expression of surprise. He likely hadn't thought she'd asked why she was receiving a gift. Hataki-sensei said I should come up with a way to reassure you that I am okay so you will be okay. It didn't shock the Hayaton user that he'd noticed her change in behavior. She knew Sai was right, she had been clingy as a way to manage her guilt. If she wasn't so insistent on not killing, she would not have left herself open to that arrow, and Naruto wouldn't have been taken. I know you are, I'm sorry for crowding you, Naruto-kun. I do not feel crowded, though I do not know what it is to feel crowded. I do not mind you being close, Haku. And what happened was not your fault. I should have seen to our security, and did not. I was negligent and we were ambushed, because of it. I subsequently failed to get all responsible, but should the opportunity arise in the future I will not fail again. We all share responsibility, Naruto-kun, Haku countered. While he could have, placing down security seals post-mission would be paranoid in most situations. It was not unreasonable to think themselves far enough away from the base to be out of the range of retaliation, and with Jiraiya with them that'd scare off all but the most. Do you really believe that? Naruto asked, but it couldn't quell the realization Haku just had. Honestly, no. I was so used to seeing myself as a tool for Zabuza that being a friend is very new. You and even Saikuen are dear to me, so if you are harmed it feels like I have failed my purpose. However, now I am wondering something else. Isn't it convenient those sound ninja attacked while Jiraiya was meeting a contact? Haku watched as Naruto squinted as he thought, quickly coming to the same conclusion she had. Jiraiya's contact sold us out. I think it is possible, the timing is too coincidental. And while I've heard of coincidence, I've never once seen it. Naruto didn't respond, but Haku knew it was because the next steps were obvious: alert Jiraiya and lay a trap for the burned contact. And as she changed topics he wouldn't go back to her recent behavior. Thank you, Naruto-kun. You already thanked me for the flowers. Not for those, but they are lovely. Thank you for being my friend and never judging me. Thank you for accepting me. Haku said, but her words were hollow, a poor measure for how she was feeling. I hope Hinata-chan will forgive me, she spoke. Naruto was going to ask what she'd need forgiveness for, but before the words could leave his mouth, he felt two warm, moist lips on his own. It was over as fast as it began, but the Uzumaki was speechless. He felt an unfamiliar warmth in his face. Haku ran her hands through his spiky locks and giggled, turning away and walking toward the cabin. Not even Kakashi, appearing beside him, stirred the genin out of his trance. Your first kiss, and with a cutie no less. You do your sensei proud, Naruto-kun, Kakashi said, favoring his student with a nice smile. Naruto could only respond with a slight smile as his hand rubbed the back of his head. His only thought was that he should try to reassure his friends more often. This was all for now. Hope you liked it. Please like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more great stories. See ya.